33 years on from the first ever World Superbike race staged here, we're back in Great Britain and at one of the sport's truly iconic settings, rural motorsport haven Donington Park. The venue celebrates 90 years of racing this season and the staging, the 28th staging of the Prosecco DOC UK round. The fourth stop in 7 weeks at the start of the Mottle FIM Superbike World Championship, the first this season to leave the European mainland. Leicestershire venue Donington Park was the birthplace of World Superbikes in 1988. This afternoon stages its 58th World SBK race, meaning only Phillip Island has hosted more. It's the oldest active circuit in the UK, and its sweeping bends and undulation are a throwback to a bygone era in motorcycle racing. One of the shortest circuits we visit at just over 4 kilometres, a third of the lap here is spent on the brakes, with the heaviest braking zone into turn 1, Redgate, the lap's first actions hotspot. From there, the first two sectors are the fast and flowing bends characteristic of this park layout. But the second half of the lap, redesigned in the mid-1980s, offers the best overtaking opportunities. Jonathan Rea picked off Tom Sykes for the lead of the 2019 Superpole race at the end of the Dunlop Straight and into the Fogarty S's. But it's the Melbourne Loop that provides most drama. A dive down the inside into the hairpin at turn 11 is the circuit's #1 passing place, as race 2 proved on our last visit, with a lap 13 pass from Alvaro Bautista on Leon Haslam for third, while the lead of the same race was also contested here. It's the perfect setup for the kind of last bend decider at Goddard's that's become the stuff of legend. The race lap record here belongs to Jonathan Rea from the Superpole race here in 2019. It's been dry, it's been wet, dry again, wet again, dry again. Earlier on, our overseas visitors were looking to the sky in astonishment as the sun beamed down and it drizzled simultaneously. The weather's taken up much of the conversation this weekend. Well, we are in Britain after all, but the sun is now shining in Donington Park, and Steve English alongside me. The focus is on the head-to-head, Rea versus Razgatlioglu.
Yeah, Rea versus Razgatlioglu. That is how the championship battle is distilling right now. 23 points between the two. Jonathan Rea with a race victory this morning. Toprak with a stunning race victory yesterday. They have separated themselves out as the class act of 2021 so far, but today's race is going to be a real challenge for them as well. Obviously, we've had, like you said, Alex, wet conditions, dry conditions, mixed conditions. We've had every which way you can have Donington Park, and we've seen lots of riders able to excel in those changeable conditions. Jonathan Rea this morning really did a good job, very steady all the way through, didn't put a foot wrong. It's in stark contrast to yesterday, because Jonathan, he used up a lot of his lives yesterday with a couple of big moments at Redgate, a massive moment down Craner Curves, and he came away from it with 20 points. It shows just how difficult it is to beat Jonathan Rea.
Yes, Toprak Razgatlioglu managed to do so yesterday, and from 13th on the grid in the second feature-length race of the weekend, Razgatlioglu starts up in 6th, so we should expect him to be competitive with Jonathan Rea over the course of the 23 laps this afternoon. Reminder of the results from the Superpole race this morning, and therefore the grid positions this afternoon. Jonathan Rea, your winner, ahead of Tom Sykes and Michael van der Mark, first double BMW podium since 2013. Leon Haslam, Garrett Gerloff and Toprak Razgatlioglu will line up on row 2, the top two Yamaha performers there in Gerloff and Toprak. Row 3, Luca Myers, career best result with 7th. Chaz Davies and Andrea Locatelli, second consecutive round. He's qualified on the third row of the grid for race 2. Alex Lowe's, after a crash in the early stages of the Superpole race, came back to finish but not inside the top 9, so he's best of the rest in 10th on the grid. And Scott Redding went the wrong way on tyre choice in that Superpole race, was a lap down at the checkered flag. He will start from 11th with teammate Michael Ruben Rinaldi alongside him in 12th. So miserable weekend, Steve English alongside me for Ducati so far, and their top performers, Davies in 8th, Redding 11th and Rinaldi 12th on the grid.
Yeah, really tough for Ducati. Chaz Davies, he's still feeling the effects of that shoulder injury from his Misano crash, so that's left him a little bit on the back foot this weekend. Scott Redding's been off the boil. We saw him with a big crash yesterday in race 1, and I think that might have been a bit of a deciding factor him as well, in being very conservative with his tyre choice during the opening race of the day here. So now from Redding, that's from the 4th row of the grid, he needs to come through, because effectively, as it sits right now, 77 points behind Jonathan Rea, his championship challenge is over.
Was that tyre choice more out of desperation to try and find something to give him an advantage, because otherwise he just wasn't on the pace of the front runners?
I don't know if it's desperation or a little bit of anxiety from Scott, because he does not like intermediate tyres. He's always been very clear on that. He's always said it's either a wet track or a dry track. And the Inters, he had bad experiences of them in MotoGP a long time ago. He had bad experiences of them in BSB as well. And he kind of just gradually has said, I'm not going to use that tyre ever again. I'm going to only be on one or the other. And unfortunately for Redding, he probably would have been better off using the slick tyre in the opening race of the day. But he opted for the more conservative choice with the wet tyre, and it just didn't work out at all. He was well off the pace.
It's got to be a psychological thing, that, for Scott Redding, because we've often heard him talking about tyres in the past. You know, there was a big discussion about the Superpole race tyre and so on, and Redding getting frustrated about others' ability to use that, and now it's the intermediate tyre that is kind of his bogey suit, as it were. So something that Redding's really got to get over, because Jonathan Rea doesn't have a single facet missing from his armoury, and that's why he's been so consistent this season.
Well, psychology plays a big role in it, and we saw Scott Redding roll to the grid for the Superpole race, and it was pretty clear he was upset. He was already shaking his head that he'd made the wrong decision. And we saw that in the Superpole session yesterday as well. We saw him bang the tank in frustration before finally being able to get himself in with a decent grid position. But it shows just how much of a knife edge he's on. He's under pressure. It's quite clear there's a lot of tension between the Aruba IT Ducati squad and Scott Redding right now. Redding wants a bike that works in a much wider operating window. Ducati want a rider that does what he's paid, which is to win a world championship. Neither of those things can happen with the way the bike is right now.
As I said previously, first double podium for BMW in 8 years. It's been a long time coming for Tom Sykes to follow up his 2019 podiums with a podium in 2021. And for Michael van der Mark, great effort from him as well to get up into the top 3 in the shorter 10-lap race. It'll be interesting to see what they've now got to offer in completely dry conditions right from the start over the course of 23.
Yeah, it's really important for BMW to get results like that as well. Obviously, 2 bikes on the podium, that gives them 2 front row starts for this afternoon's race as well. But when you look at the championship standings, you've got Sykes, Gerloff and van der Mark split by only 3 points, which is a good indication of the progress that BMW are making. Obviously, Garrett Gerloff's had a lot more potential than the 73 points he has in the championship so far this season, but it does show that the BMW riders are doing a pretty good job of getting the most they can out of that bike.
Yes, all things being equal, you would fancy that Gerloff should really be up there and challenging with the likes of Scott Redding and Alex Lowes, who are currently tied for 3rd in the championship, 77 points back from your series leader, Jonathan Rea, as we see Leon Haslam with his best result of the season so far, with 4th position in race 1. Couldn't quite get to the podium places, half a second back in the end.
Yeah, but Haslam's looked good all the way through this weekend. He qualified in 7th for the opening race of the weekend. That was with a crash in the Superpole session. So he's been fast all the way through the week in dry conditions and wet conditions, and he gave himself an opportunity to maybe finish on the podium in the Superpole race. Just didn't quite have enough underneath him in those closing stages, gave up a little bit of ground to the BMWs, but he was able to hold off Garrett Gerloff, so it's a good performance.
We have seen Haslam on occasion fade in the second half of races. That's going to be something for him to conquer here.
Yeah, the one thing for him is he knows how a bike should react here. He knows exactly what he has to do with the bike to make it last here as well. So if there's any racetrack in the world where Haslam's going to be able to get good results, it is here at Donington Park. But he's looked good all the way through the weekend.
Yes, certainly a few track specialists here, the likes of Leon Haslam and also Tom Sykes, of course, who we mentioned previously, with his podium position, yet another podium position around this circuit. In the case of Sykes, his 16th at Donington Park from 25 starts. We're now seeing Garrett Gerloff, who, as we've touched on previously, Steve, has dropped points really in a fashion that's left him with work to do in the context of the championship if he wants a top 3 finish overall. Has shown flashes of pace. Not quite podium earlier on this morning, but certainly a contender for one this afternoon.
Yeah, for Gerloff in yesterday's race, he, as he said himself, threw away a podium spot with a crash at the end of the race, but certainly he's looked good this weekend here at Donington Park, set the pace on Friday. He's adapted well to this track, gives himself a good chance starting from that middle of the second row.
And alongside of him, of course, will be Toprak Razgatlioglu starting from 6th position. Meanwhile, further back down the order, Scott Redding due to start from 11th. Redding really has to dig deep now because it's been a desperate couple of rounds for him. He'll be looking to just salvage something from this one, frankly, at this stage. Yeah,
Redding said after yesterday's crash, he was very lucky not to be badly hurt. The foot peg dug into his leathers. It actually came all the way through, so he was lucky it didn't pierce his skin. And certainly for Redding, that is the kind of incident that could easily put you on the back foot over the course of the rest of the weekend. When we had changeable conditions like we did this morning, you can kind of understand him being a little bit wary to go out and take big risks. But certainly it was a gamble and it didn't work out for Redding. Now he needs to make sure he's able to have a good result here in race 2.
where we are now, Reading 77 points behind Jonathan Rea. We've said it already, we're starting to consider this as a two-horse race in the context of the championship. Do you think that's going to release some of the pressure on Scott Redding, that you know, perhaps the thought of trying to go toe-to-toe, needing to match Jonathan Rea in every single race might fade a little as his options for the title become slimmer?
And let's be clear on it, it is a two-horse race now. Scott Redding is going to be too far back in the championship standings unless Jonathan Rea hits a lot of trouble. Toprak's been very consistent all the way through this season. The Yamaha's made a big step forward. It could well free up Scott Redding, takes away some of the pressure. Now it's up to him to get race results and try and win races. The problem for Redding is when he's on form, he's a fantastic rider, one of the best in the world. It's just getting enough of those performances day in, day out. Just hearing from pit lane as well that we're starting to get some rain down there in pit lane, so you can see the riders now making their way out to the grid. They've got 5 minutes from when pit lane opens to get out to the grid. You can see Alex Lowe's heading out there. He's on slick tyres. There is spots of rain. Just looking outside the commentary box window, you can see it now as well coming down. So this is going to be an extra challenge for all these riders.
And you said about looking out of the commentary box window. You also look out of the commentary box window at the sky and you say, well, where's it coming from? Because, yes, there are a few grey clouds, but the vast majority are pretty bright white. And the sun is still showing here in Donington Park. So big decisions to be made.
Tell you what, our commentary box literally looks out from over the Honda garages. I'm looking at Ron Haslam, the man that knows this place better than anyone. And Rocket Ron standing on the pit wall, shaking his head, looking up at the sky, and he's clearly saying the exact same thing. Where is it coming from?
Yes, that's the doubt for sure, for the moment at least. Then we expect this race to be on slick tyres. We rather got into the territory for slick tyres anyway by the end of the Superpole race earlier on today. The fact that it was a shorter race, riders didn't want to take a risk when the conditions were potentially damp early on, but the expectation was that we'd be talking in terms of a dry race this afternoon.
Well, this is interesting. You can see that riders have come back to the pits to do an additional siding lap as well. You've got 5 minutes to leave pit lane from when it opens. You can see how many drops are on that camera view, but you've got 5 minutes to leave the pits. You can come back, ride through pit lane, and then go out to do another siding lap. We used to see Supersport 300 riders do this a lot whenever they didn't have enough track time during the practice sessions. So we're now seeing a few of the Superbike riders do that. That could be important for Michael van der Mark and Scott Redding that we saw do that.
Common in terms of these conditions for riders to just get an extra understanding of what the track conditions are out there in real time.
Yeah, you want to be able to leave it as late as possible to get to the grids, that you've got as much information as possible. Donington Park is filled with undulations. You go all the way down the Craner curves. It's a spectacular shot. It looks fantastic from trackside, but it's a big drop, and that means that the water has to go somewhere from that rain, and that's why Donington, you do tend to have areas around this track where the rain does funnel into.
And it's very easy to get caught out. We saw that from Alex Lowe's earlier on today, chasing Jonathan Rea for the lead.
Yeah, just clipped that white line, lost the front, and that was it. But it's so easy for that to happen. And in these conditions, it's going to be even easier. If you're out there on slick tyres and there is that bit of rain coming down, that little bit of slickness on the racetrack, it is going to be a big challenge.
And when it's slippery, and if you're running on slick tyres, more to lose for the championship favourites than there are for anyone else.
Yeah, that's always the case. Those riders at the front, Toprak, we can see there in the 54, Jonathan Rea in the #1 bike, they're the riders with it all to lose whenever you're in a situation like this. There's big points to be gained, big points to be lost.
And Scott Redding will be hoping that it's a case of big points to be gained here today as he pulls into position. Has been a miserable recent run for him, and he will be starting, remember, from 11th on this grid. Less than a minute now until the pit lane close, and then we'll be closes and we'll be locking them in. And we make our way up through the field in mixed conditions. That's when we get positions changing most frantically, I would suggest.
Yeah, this is really where it's going to come down to rider decisions. And speaking to people after the opening race of the day, they did say that on the grid there was so much indecision out there. Wet tyres, intermediate tyres, which ones do you put on? And that's actually why on the grid we were given information. Alex Lowe's was out there in a wet tyre. Right at the last second they changed on to the intermediate tyres, and it does show you just how late in the day riders make that decision. And then once they make that decision, they've got to commit to it. You've got to make sure that's the tyre you're going to make work.
And we saw a rocket ship start from Toprak Razgatlioglu in drying conditions in race 1 here. How quickly might he be able to get on terms with Jonathan Rea?
Well, it's really interesting for Toprak because he's one of the few riders that in any conditions can use the X tyre. In these kind of conditions, that could be a big advantage for him.
Jonathan Rea then lines up from pole position after victory in the Super Pole race this morning. His 5th race victory of the 2021 campaign, his 11th consecutive podium, extending his lead up to 23 championship points. He was 2nd in race 1 yesterday.
Yeah, get those tyres onto the grid if you're going to make some changes. Jonathan Rea, certainly, we've seen him make the right decisions more often than not, Jonathan Rea. A lot of the time with Kawasaki, that's tended to be a conservative decision. They haven't had to really put all their chips into the middle of the table. These kind of conditions could be very different though.
Alongside him, Tom Sykes, 2nd place in this morning's Super Pole race. His best result since our last visit to Donington Park in 2019 and his first podium in 645 days, race 1 from Manicourt in 2019.
Yeah, for a rider with as much success as Tom's had, that's quite the drought, but he's looked good all the way through this weekend. Wet or dry conditions, he's been fast. Right from free practice 1, he was actually really consistent and quick out there, so he looks good on the BMW.
Completing the front row, his BMW teammate Michael van der Mark. First BMW podium now on the board then for the Dutchman. 3 5th places, including in race 1 yesterday, his previous best with the manufacturer.
Yeah, for Van der Mark, he's out there on a new frame from BMW. They've brought some upgrades for the Navarra test, and for Van der Mark, it seems to have made a little bit of a difference for him, but he's been fast again all the way through this weekend. In the changeable conditions for the Super Pole session, that's when he was really good.
Extending his lead in the Tissot Super Pole Award with another 12 championship points as well, of course, for a race victory in the Super Pole race earlier on today. Jonathan Rea, who's been untouchable in terms of Super Pole successes and is also the more than capable as well in Super Pole race trim. Here is Leon Haslam, 4th in the Super Pole race, position he held from lap 2 onwards. Did well to get through on Garrett Gerloff early on, but despite his best efforts, could never make a move on the 2 BMWs ahead. I think we might be able to hear from him now.
Leon, it literally started spitting with rain here when you guys got out of pit lane. It seems to have stopped it now, but how difficult is it right now to make a decision based, and what are the expectations really weather-wise?
Yeah, obviously I think it's due to come, but looking at the clouds, it looks like just little showers. So right now it's still slick, so you have to make the decision based off of what it is now. So same for everyone. It's been a bit of a mixed bag of weather this weekend, but so far so good.
Best of luck, Leon.
Thank you.
Garrett Gerloff here starts from P5, still just 1 podium to his name this season, despite consistent pace and some flashes of brilliance, as we've said previously. Gerloff crashed out of race 1, so something for him to make up for here.
Yeah, certainly for Gerloff, he's got a good opportunity this weekend to be able to have some good results. He's been fast. That crash in race 1 came out of the podium spot, so he wants to gun for that again today.
Toprak Razgatlioglu, his run of 7 consecutive podiums in WorldSBK at an end, with the record Yamaha top 3 string in sight as well. 6th in the Super Pole race, conditions dictating he couldn't make the same swift progress as he had in race 1. He is nearer to the front of the grid this time though.
Yeah, I'm going to give Toprak a bit of a pass though, because all of his bad results have come whenever we've had those changeable conditions, and they've still been top 6 results. We've always said over the years that to beat Jonathan Rea, you need to be grinding out those consistent results. Toprak's a regular podium threat. He's won some races this year, and those bad days, if he's able to keep them as being top 6 finishes, he keeps himself in contention.
Yes, Toprak hasn't been out of the top 6. The problem for him is that Jonathan Rea hasn't been out of the top 3.
Well, Jonathan Rea just grinds out podium after podium, and that's why he's so hard to beat. Rea always looks at it from the perspective of how the weekend has gone as a whole. As it sits right now, Rea's picked up only 3 points on Toprak so far this weekend, so Toprak's still got a good chance today.
Luca Myers, Chaz Davies and Andrea Locatelli on row 3. Myers fresh from his first Super Pole race finish, the best result of his short Superbike career to date, and comfortably his best race 2 grid slot. He's already matched his highest scoring WorldSBK weekend with a race to spare.
Yeah, I spoke to his crew chief Mick Shanley earlier on this morning, and he said that Lucas is now really adapting well to that superbike. He's taking on board all the lessons and the riding style changes that you have to make from a super sport bike onto a superbike, and that's why he's making his progress. He's riding well this weekend.
And certainly trying to learn from the best in Jonathan Rea.
Well, he's managed by Fabien Faure, who's Jonathan Rea's rider coach, and that gives them a nice close relationship. They both ride the same bike, so you are able to learn an awful lot from him.
Chaz Davies here, P8, 7 points from 5 races since his 2nd place finish from race 2 in Estoril. None of the Ducatis ever really showing consistent top 5 pace this weekend, but at least he has something on the board after what was a scoreless Mazzano weekend, remember?
Yeah, and certainly it is a case of being able to bounce back from that, but unfortunately for Chaz, he is still carrying that shoulder injury. It's curtailing him this weekend. He's expecting to be back to full fitness next time out in Aston.
Andrea Locatelli, some hard work from the team overnight and a brave performance from the Italian for ninth this morning. An 8th top 10 finish of the campaign, an important one as well. One place lower and he would have been starting from the 5th row here.
Yeah, and for Locatelli, this is actually another decent performance by him. Obviously had a big crash during race 1, but able to come back and score a point in the Superpole race.
Alex Lowe's looking to bounce back from his second non-scoring race of this 2021 season. A lap 2 crash at the old hairpin relegates him off the front 3 rows, but thankfully for him, 4th place in yesterday's Superpole, and that leaves him 10th on the grid here.
Yeah, it was a bit unfortunate for those to catch that white line, but it is there to catch you out during those tricky conditions. I think he had given himself an opportunity to really be able to fight with Jonathan Rea for the race victory, and a lot of the times for riders, when you see an incident like that, you want to see them try and really attack to take that race victory. We've seen an awful lot of teammates go up against Jonathan Rea and not take the fight to him. So for Lowe's, he was trying to give himself a good opportunity there. Now he needs to settle himself in for the early laps of this race, give himself a chance of fighting for another podium. Very
competitive 4th row of the grid with Alex Lowe's joined there by Scott Redding and Michael Ruben Rinaldi, and under normal circumstances you'd fancy all of them to move forward.
Yeah, it's not too often you see a factory Kawasaki and 2 factory Ducatis down there in the 4th row of the grid.
Alongside Alex Lowe's then, it's this man, Scott Redding, contemplative before the start of this race. Only 32 points from his last 6 races. He scored 72 from the first 6 of 2021. His challenge really fading, much to his continual frustration. Tyre gamble didn't pay off in the Superpole race this morning.
Well, frustration's the key word. We've seen that frustration boil over for Redding at different times, and he clearly expects a bit more from Ducati. They clearly expect a bit more from him. And this is a big race now for Scott Redding. He needs to come away with good result here.
Alongside him then his teammate Michael Ruben Rinaldi, the star of the show last time out in Misano, still yet to better 10th position around this circuit in Donington Park. He finished outside of the points earlier on today, but still that was his best result around this circuit.
Yeah, and for Rinaldi, we've seen at different times in the past really strong in the hot conditions. When the track gets very slick, he's able to use that X tyre. He struggled a little bit here at Donington Park, same as in Aragon as well. But his form in Estoril and Misano shows that whenever he clicks with that bike, he's able to be at the front of the field.
Row number 5, Axel Bassani, Luke Mossy and Eugene Laverty. For Bassani, that's 4 top 10 finishes in the last 5 races. Missed out on a front 3 rows grid slot by 2 places in the Superpole race, but he has been doing a good job.
I was talking to a few riders about Bassani's performances, and they've been impressed by him. They've said that he's been able to come in and do a really good job on that bike and give himself a good opportunity to be able to score some points and turn some heads.
Luke Mossy there, starting from 14th position on the grid. That's where he finished in race 1, only 17th in the shorter race earlier on today. And completing row number 5 will be Eugene Laverty, 13th position for him in race 1 to put some points on the board. I think we can now head down once again to the grids.
Thanks, guys. I'm with Marcus Aschenbacher, Michael Vandermark's crew chief, and Marcus. Both riders spoke about the improvements made in the Navarra test, particularly. Why is the bike working so well in these conditions, and what do you expect for the race here?
Yeah, already the bike was working quite well in these conditions before. We have made a little bit of improvement with the setting of the bike, but generally in electronics, but generally we have to work more. But also already in Aragon we were not bad in these conditions because the engine is quite smooth. The bike is not so bad to ride in these conditions, and the riders are also not bad in these conditions.
Mike said he expected full wet at some point in this race. Do you think it'll be that way?
We'll see. We will try our best. The race yesterday was not so bad, and we will work for the future, basically.
Thanks, Marcus. Best of luck.
No worries. Bye.
So Eugene Laverty will be lining up from 15th position on the grid, and behind him we've got Alvaro Bautista, who starts from 16th place. Bautista, Vinales and Rabat. Miserable weekend for all 3 of them, frankly.
Yeah, it really has been, and for Alvaro you expect to see him manage that X tyre really well through the course of the race, come into the race as it progresses, but he doesn't have the speed right now. He's just got that lap by lap pace and consistency, but certainly for Bautista, not where he expects to be fighting.
Yes, the long game for Alvaro Bautista, as you say. He managed to claw his way back yesterday to 8th position in race 1, but in the shorter race where outright pace is really rewarded, he was stuck all the way down in 15th place. Alongside him here, Isaac Vinales took 13th in the Superpole race. He was 15th for the single point in race 1, and he only really his third scoring round of this season. Failed to score entirely through the weekend in the Emilia-Romagna round in Misano last time out. So a fair few riders back towards the end of the field, Steve, who are going to be looking to pick up some points. But hard goal when you look at the top 13, 14 riders on that grid.
Yeah, it's going to be really tough to be able to come through and score points. There's an awful lot of quality at the front of the field now in WorldSBK. What's going to be interesting is to see what tyres everyone decides to use. We've got 35 degrees track temperature, a bit hotter than what we had yesterday. It should be where pretty much everyone goes out there in the X tyre, you'd imagine, the super soft compound. But there are some bikes that don't quite work too well with that tyre. The likes of the Kawasaki's have been a little bit on the limit whenever they use the X tyre during races. But now in the warmer conditions, Donington Park might be a little bit different for them as well. This could be an opportunity for the likes of Jonathan Rea to try that super soft compound.
Tito, about here on your screen, 2 retirements for him so far this weekend. Pulled out citing rear tyre issues in race 1 for his 6th non-scoring race in 10. It's now 7 out of 11 following a crash in the Superpole race.
Yeah, it's been a really disappointing start to his time in WorldSBK for Tito, but the talent's there. It's just a case of trying to see whether or not he's going to be able to really let it shine.
2 retirements as well for Christophe Ponson, who you just saw, the Frenchman. Jonas Folger as well, retirement in race 1 and only 16th position in the Superpole race. Completing the field here will be Loris Cresson, who could only manage 16th in race 1, and he too was a retirement in the Superpole race. So all smiles for Cresson, despite the fact that he's got to come through from the back of the grid here. The focus will turn to the front of the field, where Jonathan Rea starts from pole position. Toprak Razgatlioglu from 6th. They are the top 2 in the series standings. 181 points at present for Jonathan Rea, 158 for Toprak Razgatlioglu. Separate fight further back between Reading and Lowes, currently tied on 104 points apiece, with Michael Ruben Rinaldi rounding out your top 5, and the 2 BMWs of Tom Sykes and Michael van der Mark also in the mix. Rea, Sykes and van der Mark, the top 3 in this morning's Super Bowl race. The same trio finished locked out the front row in yesterday's Super Bowl, made the podium in race 1 of the 2018 UK round, albeit in a different order. All have been winners around this circuit. Sykes on 9 occasions, Rea now on 6, and van der Mark twice in 2018. The only other rider to have seen the flag first in Donington Park, Toprak Razgatlioglu, who did the job here yesterday. He'll be fighting his way back from the 2nd row of the grid this afternoon. Alex Lowes and Scott Redding looking to bounce back from their non-scoring rides just a couple of hours ago. This is how they line up then. The top 9 as they were at the checkered flag in the Superpole race earlier on here today. Jonathan Rea victorious in that one ahead of the BMW duo of Sykes and van der Mark. And really, they were the 4 men in the Superpole session. They were the 4 men in the Superpole race. The question, Steve English alongside me, is who will be the 4 men here in race 2?
You'd have to imagine this man, Jonathan Rea, is going to be strong once again. Rea on the podium all the way through this season so far. It's all about what Toprak does from that 5th position on the grid, and keep your eye on the 4th row of the grid. Alex Lowes on the 22, Scott Redding trying to recover from no points in the opening 2 races of the weekend, and then Michael Ruben Rinaldi as well. Certainly the BMWs with the likes of Tom Sykes we ride on board with, he's been very strong all the way through the weekend. Very consistent pace from the BMW riders too.
Well, the questions have all been about tyres so far this weekend and who's going to go for what. But you look out there at the moment and the sun is certainly shining, and you'd expect it to be slick tyres throughout.
Oh, it's slick tyres for sure, and it's the X compound, the super soft compound all round. Everyone actually out there on the same combinations, front and rear. So it's going to make it nice and easy for our graphics team.
And, well, is there still a risk of rain?
You'd hope not, but I'll tell you what, it rained without any clouds overhead earlier on. I think for Donington this weekend, it has been a little bit of a lottery at different times when the SBK bikes have been out on track. But as it is right now, it's a dry track. It's 35 degrees track temperature. There were spots of rain, but it's hot enough, 22 degrees air temperature, for that to burn off very quickly. So luckily, we're going to be set for 23 laps of what should be really action-packed racing. Toprak coming from the 5th position on the grid. He wants to give himself a good opportunity to put this man, Jonathan Rea, under pressure.
Rea then it is, who starts from pole, 181 championship points to his name. This man, Razgatlioglu, on 158. He'll be starting from P6. Scott Redding starting from further back, 11th position on the grid. He and Alex Lowes tied on 104 apiece, and both were non-scorers earlier on here today. Pressure for them to try and get back on terms. We are increasingly looking at a head-to-head scrap between this man on the #1 Kawasaki and the young pretender of Toprak Razgatlioglu on the 54. Race 2 of the Prosecco DOC UK round from Donington Park for 2021. Lights out. Not a good start at all from Michael van der Mark. He's getting swallowed up by 2 Yamahas in the run to the first turn. Razgatlioglu charging through from 6th to 2nd. There he goes again around the outside line at Redgate. Leon Haslam getting relegated back by Garrett Gerloff. So Gerloff also making decent early progress, but van der Mark slipping back dramatically. He's already dropped down from a front row grid slot into 6th position. Luca Mayas challenging him now up the inside as they come through the right-hander. Side by side now for 3rd position. Tom Sykes pops through on the inside of Garrett Gerloff. That move came from absolutely nowhere. They now come through McLean side by side with Sykes on the inside of Razgatlioglu, who's going to try the cutback. They're going to run it through still side by side, these two. The BMW, the number 66 of Tom Sykes, the track specialist here, but Toprak eventually knows enough, and it looks as though he's managed to get in front and get some clear air now. Sykes will try to respond. They come down the Dunlop straight in towards the Fogarty S's, side by side for 4th position as well, as Haslam makes a late move there on Garrett Gerloff. Gerloff is pushed offline, recovers to the circuit well. So, race number 2 here in Donington Park. Stunning start again from Razgatlioglu through from 6th to 2nd. Sykes keeping him honest in the early stages. Van der Mark holding on valiantly for 6th position, but he's dropped back alarmingly in the early stages from 3rd, and Gerloff up to P5.
Yeah, Toprak doing exactly what he had to do there when Sykes came through. He knew that if he sits behind Sykes for even just a couple of corners, it can give Rea that advantage. You've got to try and be very forceful, get yourself back through, gets himself up into 2nd spot again. Behind that, Leon Haslam with a really good opening lap as well to make his move on Garrett Gerloff into the S's to retake that 4th position. Haslam's riding really well this weekend.
Alex Lowe's 8th, Scott Redding 10th, just to keep an eye on the riders who started on the 4th row of the grid. So Scott Redding has made up 1 position, and Alex Lowe's is moving through at a swifter lick. It's closing down at the front of the field, just a 10th of a second now, the gap between Jonathan Rea and Toprak Razgatlioglu. Toprak has already moved through from 6th to 2nd. Is it now a matter of time before he has a go on the tail of the reigning champion?
Yeah, this is where we know the Yamaha is really good. It can use that X tyre in all kind of conditions. Jonathan Rea, we're not so sure about, because he's tended to opt for that SC0 tyre throughout the course of this season. You can see the X tyre with that red dash on it for Jonathan Rea, so he's out there on that super soft compound. 23 laps on that tyre is going to be tough, but we have seen his teammate Alex Lowe's put 19 laps on a tyre like that earlier on this weekend.
The Fogarty S's they come then with Rea. We're watching back at Razgatlioglu behind him. Toprak losing a little bit of ground there with a wobble coming off what is turn 10 here in Donington Park. He's made it all back up again, and Tom Sykes is keeping them honest down in front, as I've said already.
Yeah, Sykes has been strong all the way through this weekend. He's clearly been able to latch onto the back of Toprak here. The issue for the BMW rider has been, as the race progresses, doesn't quite have that same potential as the Kawasaki and the Yamaha. They have separated themselves over the course of this weekend, and that's why it's a bit difficult for Tom to be able to really hold on that pace of the 54 in front of him.
Very deep for Sykes into Goddard's. That's lost him a little bit of ground compared to Razgatlioglu, who sets the fastest lap of the race last time around. 1 minute 28.497, fractionally faster than Jonathan Rea was through the first sector, in which Razgatlioglu really made up that ground, and he's close again. Gerloff behind, meanwhile, attacking Leon Haslam. Just saw him flash through the shot in the background there, and tied right up now onto the tail of the number 91 Honda is the number 31 Yamaha of Gerloff.
You can see for Gerloff, he knows he has to get through on Haslam if he's the chance of really fighting for these podium spots. It's going to be important for him to make that move nice and quickly. He's right there with Haslam, but we've seen Haslam very strong in the brakes into the S's and also into the Melbourne loop at the end of the lap.
Well, Razgatlioglu really closing up here through the 2 right-handers. We'll be onto the Dunlop straight again. We'll see if Razgatlioglu can get tucked in behind the race leader, Jonathan Rea. There's certainly not going to be an opportunity into the Fogarty S's, so it's going to have to be through the 2 hairpins at the end of lap number 3. Sykes still keeping a watching brief. The top 3 separated by just a second. That gap now to 4th position is up to over a second. So exactly as you said, Steve, it is critical for Garrett Gerloff that he gets through on Leon Haslam as quickly as possible if he wants to get back on terms with this lead trio.
Yeah, it's a bit like that further down the field as well. I saw Scott Redding trying to get down the inside of Lucas Mayas as well. So he's trying to follow Alex Lowe's through, make that progress through these early laps to get himself into a position to be able to attack. But right now it is a case of those leading 2 seem to have a bit of an edge, and Tom Sykes doing a really good job to stick with them.
Garrett Gerloff getting around the outside of Leon Haslam here into Redgate, so it must have been a really strong run off Goddard from Garrett Gerloff, and he has now released from Leon Haslam. The cork is out of the bottle, and now we're going to see what pace Garrett Gerloff has got. We're also going to see what Toprak's got to offer. He has been getting close repeatedly in the first sector of the lap. As I said previously, has Toprak. He is again fractionally faster than Jonathan Rea on lap 3, and he is again within striking distance. Toprak on the 54 versus Rea on the number 1, your 2 race leaders.
Yeah, Toprak's so much faster mid-corner than Rea right now, but Rea actually riding a good defensive line through this section, but Toprak's got a chance.
Razgatlioglu down the inside at the start of the Dunlop straight. He's now going to try and stretch his leg coming off Coppes. Rea will attempt to respond in towards the Fogarty S's. We've seen him do it before on Tom Sykes here, of course, 2 years ago. On this occasion, Toprak late on the brakes, as you might like, and he holds on.
Yeah, Rea's going to need to answer straight back on Toprak as well, because we know that the X tyre can last on the Yamaha. Toprak did that yesterday. We don't know if it can last on the Kawasaki for Rea. That's why it's going to be really crucial to try and lead this race from the front for Rea, as opposed to trying to stick with Razgatlioglu and try and attack him later in the proceedings.
Riding on board with Jonathan Rea as they come towards the conclusion of lap number 4. Still a long way to go in this race, but it's Toprak, just as he did in race number 1, who's been able to burst clear of Jonathan Rea at the head of the field, and significantly faster than the reigning world champion last time around.
Yeah, and certainly for Razgatlioglu, half a second faster last time around. That was mostly in that first sector as well. Really strong on this run down the Craner curves, down in towards the old hairpin. This is where the Yamaha works very well.
This is where Razgatlioglu then has an opportunity to break away. We've been saying it all race long. It's through the first sector that he's making up his time. He was regularly trapped behind Jonathan Rea coming through the old hairpin. Had a couple of looks down the inside, but couldn't make any kind of manoeuvre. Now he's got daylight in front of him. We'll see what pace he can unleash on that Platy Yamaha machine.
Well, to be honest, as strange as it is to say, Toprak's been the fastest rider all the way through this weekend in a lot of ways, and he's now got his opportunity to get to the front of the field, and now it's up to Jonathan Rea to try and dig in, see if he can go with him. Of course, we've seen it different times in the past. Rea's more than happy to just settle for his good, safe championship points. But right now, he's looking at Toprak taking chunks out of his championship lead over the last couple of rounds. This is where Jonathan Rea needs to make his stand.
Rea really closed up there coming through the Fogarty S's, right on the tail of Razgatlioglu. He went in so deep into turn 9, I thought he'd missed his braking point, but actually Rea is just making a little bit of a nuisance of himself here on the tail of our race leader.
Yeah, a bit of a slip there for Rea as well as he opened up the gas coming through the loop, but we've seen all the way through this weekend that Jonathan's not afraid of having to react to that bike moving around underneath him. Into Goddard's has been out of shape more often than not in dry conditions, so he's doing as good a job as he can to stick with Razgatlioglu. He's just at the fastest lap of the race.
1 minute 28.212 from Jonathan Rea. We look further back down the order. This is Scott Redding. He's just made a pass on Michael van der Mark for 6th position. So Redding continuing his progress. Next in the line of fire is Leon Haslam in 5th. Haslam's been dropped by a second now by Garrett Gerloff, but it's going to be a lonely race as things stand for the Texan, because he's got 1.5 seconds to cover if he wants to get on terms with Tom Sykes.
Yeah, and for Gerloff, it's going to be about maintaining his consistent pace all the way through. The leading riders all down in the 28s. Scott Redding, one of the other riders, down to 1 minute 28s. That's a good pace at this stage of the race, considering the weekend we've had the rubber being washed off the racetrack with all of the showers. You can see at the front of the field, Jonathan Rea, fastest lap last time around. He's sticking with Toprak again this time around.
Yes, another rider in the 28th. Further back is Luca Myers. We ride on board here with Jonathan Rea as he thinks about a move to the inside at the end of the Dunlop straight. That's how close he gets to Toprak Razgatlioglu. I think he might have missed his braking point this time if he didn't the lap before. This time around then, Razgatlioglu gets half a second's daylight.
Tell you what, you can see how much those riders are willing to battle with one another. You talk to a lot of riders out there about who are the riders that are fair to battle with, who are the ones that you want to get into a bit of a tussle with. Toprak's one that everyone actually enjoys getting in a battle with. Jonathan Rea as well. You can see here how he has to bail out on this as well, but this could have gone very wrong for Rea, but he always finds a way to just about manage to avoid the issue there. So for Jonathan Rea, he loses a few tenths of a second there, half a second on that last lap. It's all lost in the S's, but he's still within 3/4 of a second of the race leader.
Impressive really that he maintained. Problems for Leon Haslam. Haslam is dropping back around the outside there with Alex Lowe's cutting through. Haslam looked to be running slowly through Redgate. offline. Whether that was a mistake or whether there's a terminal problem here for Haslam, I can't say, but he's already dropped out of 6th position, now down to P8, and Luca Myers, who's been running strongly in recent laps, 0.8 of a second faster than him as well last lap around.
Yeah, mistake on entry to Redgate, you'd imagine there for Haslam, and he just doesn't have the same potential as the other bikes around him, so they're able to pick him off, and Haslam's not really able to answer back to them at this stage.
Yes, further back, his teammate Alvaro Bautista. How many times have we seen this? They end up meeting in the middle. Bautista half a second a lap faster than Haslam at the moment. He's up to 13th position. Quick watch on the Ducati runners. Scott Redding up in P5, released by Michael van der Mark to go off and try and chase Garrett Gerloff. It'll be interesting to see what he can do just at the head of this field of 5 riders as we watch Leon Haslam having dropped down to 8th position. Remember, Haslam started in P4 following an excellent effort in the Superpole race this morning, but he is now under siege from Luca Myers, who's always an aggressive mover, and that was candy from a baby really there for the Kawasaki runner. Haslam switches it back sweetly, manages to hold the racing line, but even then Myers has too much for him and comes through ahead of Goddard's.
Yeah, you can see Myers runs in deep. That's open Haslam down the inside and they make contact there, and certainly for Haslam, he's trying to hold his line. Myers has just made a bit of a mistake there, so it's lucky that we've not had an incident between them.
Alex Lowe's through on Michael van der Mark. This is for 6th position. Van der Mark tries to stick it out and tough it out around the outside, but it's not working for him. So the Kawasaki's at this stage of the race looking strong. We've just seen Luca Myers come through on Leon Haslam. Now we've seen Alex Lowe's through on Michael van der Mark for 6th position.
Yeah, we saw them pretty close contact at yesterday's race in race 1, and afterwards both of them had a bit of a laugh about it, but tell you what, whenever you're coming through like that into Redgate, you've got to make sure you can make the move nice and clean. We see it time and time again with these two riders when they're out on track together. Typically is very clean racing between them, but now for Lowe's the goal is try and close down that gap to Scott Redding. It's stretched out to just a second.
Yes, of course, in their time spent as teammates, how many times did we see blue on blue in the battle for the World Championship podium positions? Here it's green on white, of course, with Alex Lowe's now on the KRT, and BMW Motorrad man Michael van der Mark thinking about a recovery through for 6th position. Alex Lowe's, for the moment at least, has got the answer. Lap 8 of 23 here in Donington Park. Razgatlioglu leads. His advantage cut on this lap round from 0.7 of a second to just 0.2, so Rea recovering well from an error last lap around. Tom Sykes then in 3rd position. Garrett Gerloff has got that gap down to less than a second now. Then it's Scott Redding 1.6 seconds behind. Alex Lowe's 1.2 back with van der Mark for company. Separate fight behind. Myers, Haslam, Rinaldi, Davies and Locatelli all locked together.
Yeah, this is what we want to see. We want to see the two title contenders really duking it out, and last time around it was Jonathan Rea pulling in 0.4 of a second on Toprak with another fastest lap. Tell you what, Donington Park just delivers good racing as well. We've got such a contrast in the different sectors of the lap around here. It really does play to the strengths of different bikes, and that's why we're able to get good close racing. And you can see at the front of the field, Jonathan Rea is setting himself up to try and put himself into a position to make the move on Toprak. You'd have to imagine down into the S's as a bit of a block passer down into the Melbourne Loop. That's going to be the opportunity. But Toprak's so strong on the brakes, it's hard to put yourself in that position.
It is in towards the Fogarty S's that Jonathan Rea has been repeatedly close to Toprak, on one occasion just a little bit too close. Is this going to be his opportunity then to make a move on lap number 9? Razgatlioglu has a decent exit. Rea perhaps has a slightly better one. He's into the slipstream as they come in towards turn 9, but he's not close enough. Bit of a moment there for Toprak there, riding on the absolute ragged edge, the pair of them.
Yeah, Toprak has that bit of a slide on the entry, but he's able to collect it. And how often do you see that with Toprak? He has big moments, but somehow able to just get himself still into the apex. We see it time and time again with him. He's got that confidence, he's got that bit of swagger on the bike at the minute. He's very reminiscent of Jonathan Rea with that ability to just adapt to what's happening underneath him. Toprak's riding at the top of his game. Jonathan Rea's always been at the top of his game, and that's why we've got a good battle between them now for the World Championship.
That's the board you never want to see, is it? 0.1 to Jonathan Rea. It's actually 0.3 by the time they get to the line, but Toprak Razgatlioglu has not got much of a margin of comfort as Jonathan Rea charges in once again to Redgate at the start of lap number 10.
Toprak mind seeing it. It's got P1 on it as well. Just further down the field, Garrett Gerloff pulls in 0.4 of a second last time around on Tom Sykes. He's now closing in on that podium spot in 3rd.
So a fight for 3rd position is certainly in the offing, but don't dare take our eyes off this battle at the moment. Just 0.1 of a second between them across the last timing point, with Jonathan Rea still trying to eye up a manoeuvre. This is where Jonathan Rea is at his strongest, through McLean's, through Coppice, onto the Dunlop straight, and at the end of it, He's been very close in the braking zone towards Razgatlioglu, who has made a mistake there, and Rea cuts through on the inside, and Toprak immediately looks over his shoulder just to check on the pack behind him. 2.7 seconds is the gap to third position. It's all about this duard in front in the context of the championship. Jonathan Rea set to extend his series lead after making a lap 10 pass on rival Razgatlioglu.
Yeah, Rea really trying to stretch his legs at this stage to pull away from Toprak. Let's see what happens on the next couple of laps to see if Toprak's able to dig in.
Looked like an error to me from Toprak.
Yeah, it was up to Coppice, just runs a bit wide. We're going to get a replay of it, and easy to run in a little bit too hot into here. You can see that back end stepping out for Toprak, pushes him wide out onto the curb. He's got to get off that. You've got to then straighten the bike up to then let yourself lay it into the right-hander again. So for Jonathan Rea, it's about as easy a move as he's going to make around Donington Park. But for Toprak, it's now a case of let's see if he's able to attack Jonathan Rea, put himself into position to do that again. We saw whenever he was behind him before, he was really strong in the first half of the lap. Where we are now, this is the run down through Hollywood. Look at how the Yamaha is able to close up on the Kawasaki mid-corner from Craner curves down in towards the old hairpin.
Here's a look at the live championship then, what this would mean. If Jonathan Rea beats Razgatlioglu by a single position up at the head of the field here, the gap would be 28 points. More than satisfactory for Jonathan Rea, despite losing 5 in race 1 here yesterday. Toprak would dearly like to turn the tables because it's a 10-point swing in the context of the championship.
Yeah, really critical for Toprak to be able to do that. I said a few laps ago, Jonathan Rea usually says, oh, Rea's down!
Jonathan Rea! No, so rare error from the reigning world champion from the race lead on lap 11, under pressure from Toprak Razgatlioglu, and look at how that's going to change the world championship. We were talking about a potential 10-point swing. Forget about it. The points tumbling away as Jonathan Rea tumbles into the gravel trap.
Yeah, you don't tend to see too many mistakes from Jonathan Rea. We have over the course of the last few years seen one mistake a year for Rea. He hasn't made any up to this point this season. He's made a big one there into Coppice. You can see trying to just hold on to that race lead, trying to pull away from Toprak, just folds that front on the run through Coppice. Very easy for that to happen. We've seen other riders fall at Coppice through the course of this season. Of course, this weekend we saw Haslam in the Super Pole session. We saw a few other riders as well. Easy to get caught out there.
Ladies and gentlemen, we have a world championship. Jonathan Rea is attempting to recover to the circuit, but if he does fail to score in this race, which at the moment you'd have to suggest is extremely likely, Razgatlioglu could take the lead of the series by a 2-point margin with 25 points banked here. Race 2 heading towards half-race distance. Toprak with a 2.5-second gap behind him. How the tables have turned.
It's easy to look at it and think about the pressure Toprak's putting on Jonathan Rea there. He's been putting them under pressure for the last couple of rounds. Estoril, Misano, and here at Donington Park. Rea knows he's in a fight with Toprak, and Toprak, even with that mistake he had made to let Rea through into the lead, he was making sure he was in that right position as well. And just an untimely mistake there for Jonathan Rea, but you do tend to see that as well from riders. But for Rea now, it's about trying to make sure that when we get back in action in Assen in a few weeks' time, one of his favourite tracks on the year, that he's able to really claw back a lot of those points.
Devastating blow for Jonathan Rea. His run of consecutive podiums is at an end. How many times have we said that Jonathan Rea just can't seem to put a foot wrong, that even when he makes an error, it doesn't go against him? This time it's punished as severely as is possible.
Well, this is one of those days where we've seen Rea and Kawasaki opt for something a little bit different compared to normal. They've gone with that X rear tyre, and he's had to probably change his riding style quite a bit to try and take advantage of that tyre as well. And for Rea, in this case, the front goes away from underneath him, but certainly it shows the pressure that they're under as well, that they didn't opt for that conservative option like they usually do with the zero tyre.
Well, there's an uncommon sight. P20 is the number being prepared for Jonathan Rea. He is back up and running again. I wondered whether there might be some damage to the machine because the bike went down pretty heavily on its right-hand side, but Jonathan Rea is continuing on out on the circuit just to see if he can salvage anything, but as it stands, that looks extremely unlikely, to be perfectly honest.
Yeah, well, for Jonathan at this stage, Tito Rabat is in 15th position, and it looks like he's probably about 30 seconds up the road from Jonathan Rea, so a lot of ground to make up with 11 laps to go. Rea's really relying on someone else having an issue, or the likes of what happened to Jonas Folger retiring from the race earlier on in proceedings. But it is a case of right now, Jonathan Rea, you just try and see what you can get from the end of this race, but you'd certainly not expect too much.
Well, chaos in recent laps. Garrett Gerloff through on Tom Sykes for what is now second position, chasing down Toprak Razgatlioglu, your race leader, but the gap is 2.5 seconds as things stand, but looking good now suddenly for a Yamaha 1-2. It's kind of back where we were in pace terms in practice.
Yeah, for Tom Sykes, he's in a position there to fight it out for a podium as well. He's trying to hold off Scott Redding behind him. The gap still 1.6 seconds between Sykes and Redding, and they're matching each other time for time. So for Tom Sykes, this shows just the progress that BMW's made. They're really being competitive all the way through this weekend.
Well, Redding will have been another rider who would have been rubbing his hands as he saw Jonathan Rea's KRT machine skittling through the gravel trap, because he knows this is an opportunity for him to make back some of that early season disappointment and points.
Yeah, it's definitely an opportunity for him, and now he needs to take advantage of it. But as it sits right now, be 66 points behind the championship leader. That's Toprak Razgatlioglu as it is right now. But certainly for Redding, when the bike's working well, Scott's able to get good results. It's about getting good results when the bike's not working well.
Absolutely. Race 2, lap 14 of 23 here in Donington Park. Razgatlioglu, your race leader. The gap is fractionally below 2.5 seconds, but I fancy that Toprak can just manage that advantage from here on in. The fight is behind him. Second position, Gerloff, a second clear of Sykes. Redding, still 1.5 seconds behind Sykes here. An isolated fourth position. Then it's Alex Lowe's ahead of Michael van der Mark. Van der Mark has dug in well to remain with the Kawasaki rider after being passed by him in the first third of this race. And the separate fight behind for 7th position, Chaz Davies ahead of Leon Haslam, Michael Ruben Rinaldi and Luca Myers beginning to fade. He's just been pipped, in fact, by Michael Ruben Rinaldi for 9th position. So Myers now down to 10th.
And just looking further up the field, you can see Garrett Gerloff still got a second in hand on Tom Sykes. On this lap so far, Sykes has been a bit faster in the first half of the lap, but Gerloff finding a little bit of pace as the lap progresses as well. So certainly it is a Yamaha 1-2 right now. Sykes is going to feel that he could get himself an opportunity to be able to put some pressure on Gerloff. Just needs to find just a little step.
Toprak must be feeling that he's on his way home now with 25 championship points in the bank. This has been a circuit all weekend that can bite you in the toughest possible way, but Toprak looks set to leave Donington Park as the championship leader.
Yeah, this is where it's dangerous as well for Toprak, out in front by 2.6 seconds and comfortable out there as well. You'd have to imagine that he's going to start to wind it back a little bit, ride to his pit board. As it is, he's been fast and consistent all the way through this weekend, and now it is a case just trying to get himself through to the end. But it is going to be, as we see the incident once again with Jonathan Rea, you can see there that rear tyre, the X tyre, a little bit worn there on the edges for Jonathan, and you can't get that with the X. You are pushing hard with that tyre. It's the softest compound tyre available, and down in towards Compass there, easy to make a mistake for Rea, and it's a costly one, but it can happen. We saw last year, of course, Phillip Island, Jonathan Rea had a massive crash in the opening races of the season, and we do tend to see one crash a year from Rea. It's unfortunate for him that it happens this weekend when he's out in front, but it is about what you do over the balance of the full season.
Jonathan Rea with a 1 minute 30.242 on lap 13. He's just come across the line with a 129.738 on the 14th lap. So well and truly adrift here is Jonathan Rea. And barring a miracle, it's not going to be a point-scoring race for him. But he is faster than the riders up ahead of him. So no untoward circumstances after the crash for Jonathan Rea. Clearly losing out on 25 championship points, though. Could be costly.
Yeah, if Jonathan's not going to score too many points in today's race, like you said, Alex, but his chief rival, Toprak, once again able to stretch out just an extra couple of hundredths of a second last time around. He's managing his pace now, just looking at his pit board, trying to hit his markers, and he just wants to get through to the end of the race. He said it, but coming into this weekend, that Donington Park's one of his favourite tracks of the season. I'll tell you what, you can almost guarantee it's his favourite track now in the WorldSBK calendar.
Yes, I don't think there's much doubt about that. Toprak Razgatlioglu had said this is a place that he really enjoys, and of course he was a winner for the first time around Donington Park in race 1 here yesterday from 13th on the grid. It was a sensational performance to get to the front in just the opening 2 laps. Well, we might be getting ahead of ourselves a little bit here, but this has the feeling of a baton change in the 2021 title race as Jonathan Rea bails out in the gravel trap and Razgatlioglu breaks clear at the front of the field. It's going to be 2 wins out of 3 for him if he can hold on to it. Garrett Gerloff still pushing hard in second position. The fight further down the order ongoing between Alex Lowe's and Michael van der Mark. Van der Mark has got that gap back down to absolutely nothing. So Lowe's had half a second in his pocket or more at the start of this lap. The two have swapped and changed positions already once in sector 1, I think it must have been.
Yeah, you wouldn't be too surprised if Lowe's is struggling with that X tyre. The Kawasaki hasn't tended to be able to use it too well, and that's why it's opted for that 0 tyre. But certainly as it is right now, van der Mark putting a lot of pressure on Lowe's.
Coach Nazane watching on. still with that injured middle finger on his right hand that's seen him withdrawn from the action this weekend. Michael van der Mark has now got through on Alex Lowe's. So for 5th position, the Dutchman clear of Lowe's, relegated down to 6th. Lowe's has got 3.5 seconds in his pocket though over Chaz Davies and that 4-rider fight behind Davies, Haslam and Rinaldi.
Yeah, I think it does look like Lowe's just doesn't have that grip underneath him. Son Lozane there, one of the big rumours around the paddock is it's already looking pretty much sort of that he's going to stay where he is for next season as well. So unfortunately he misses out in the action here at Donington Park. Should be back in 3 weeks' time for Aston.
Yes, and Razgatlioglu also signed, sealed and delivered for another 2 seasons. Will it be another 2 seasons of this? Certainly responding to the news nicely with 2 victories. Potentially, he's 3 seconds clear at the front of the field.
One of those situations, you don't want to get too far ahead of yourself, but Toprak all the way through these opening 12 races of the year has been very competitive. That's why, as it stands right now, he'd be leading the World Championship. But he's clearly made a big step forward. Yamaha's made a big step forward. They can use that X tyre in all conditions. That gives them a performance advantage. But that bike as an all-round package now really is very competitive.
Scott Redding, isolated, I think is the word I've been using during this race. In 4th position at present, 1.7 seconds the gap to Tom Sykes ahead, who's managing his race beautifully. Just the laps ticking down now for the likes of Tom Sykes, who could make it back-to-back podiums. Scott Redding 4th, then it's Van der Mark ahead of Lowe. Still the closest fights on the tracker for 5th and for 7th. Great to switch back now with Michael van der Mark just ahead of Alex Lowe's, and Chaz Davies actually has pulled out a bit of a margin over Leon Haslam. New personal best lap there on lap 17 from Davies, 1:28.770. That's faster than both of the men ahead of him. He's got the gap down to less than 3 seconds. Could Davies even start to challenge to make some forward motion in the closing stages?
Davies could well be challenging as well, because you can see from Lowe's he just doesn't seem to have that grip underneath him. Last time around it was a 29.4. That's a second slower than the race leaders at this stage, and you would typically imagine that's down to the tyres for Lowe's.
Closest fight on the circuit right now is Haslam versus Rinaldi. Leon Haslam is another rider who's gradually faded as this race has gone on. So the number 21 Ducati with an opportunity to pick off the 91 Honda. We're watching the riders in 5th and 6th at the moment. Van der Mark having already got through on Alex Lowe's at the mid-race phase, just trying to shake off his shadow and former teammate in the shape of the number 22 KRT machine. But Lowe's at the moment doesn't have the answer to really close down Van der Mark, albeit he's not losing ground hand over fist like he was when Van der Mark swept on through.
Yeah, and certainly for Van der Mark, he's been able to be good and consistent all the way through the 3 races so far this weekend. He just has lost that bit of potential at the end of races. Other riders have been able to get in front of him and he hasn't quite been able to answer back to them. But he had a podium this morning. He's been inside the top 6 all the way through the weekend. It's been a good weekend for both BMW riders.
Leon Haslam, as I said, in 8th position, under siege at the moment from Michael Ruben Rinaldi. You can see them in the background of the shot. Has Rinaldi actually got through there on Haslam? Yes, he has. So Rinaldi is through just in the background of the shot. It did suggest over the course of that last lap that was the most likely next overtake, and Rinaldi has got the job done.
Yeah, further down the field, Alvaro Bautista now, the next rider really on the move. Bautista down there in 12th spot with a new fastest lap for himself during the course of the last lap. He's closing up on Mayas and Locatelli in front of him. He could well catch Haslam as well.
Yes, we've often spoken this season about the fact that Haslam starts strongly but tends to fade, and Bautista plays the long game, and the two of them at some stage during the race tend to meet often this season, with Bautista coming out on top. That's not been the case so far this weekend. Leon Haslam hogging the headlines as far as Honda are concerned, with a 6th place finish in race 1 and a 4th place earlier on in the Superpole race. But he's not going to have anything like that kind of result. As things stand, he's in 9th position, having just been picked off by Michael Ruben Rinaldi. Then it's Andrea Locatelli in 10th. Loca is 2 seconds back from Haslam, just in the background of the shot there, under severe pressure actually from Luca Maya. So that would be an interesting trio fighting to pick up on the fight for 10th position. Locatelli, Mayas and Bautista all separated by less than a second at present.
Yeah, look at Toprak's consistency there as well. In the 1:28 pretty much all the way through this race. That 1:29 is probably whenever he made that mistake into Coppice. Other than that, he's been super consistent. He's barely put a foot wrong, and for Toprak, that's why he's been able to get himself out in front. A 3-second lead now he holds over his fellow Yamaha man Garrett Gerloff, so it's comfortable right now for Toprak. 3.5 laps to go. He can just enjoy Donington Park.
Yes, and they're all mid to low 1:28s as well. The sort of 1:28.6 that he set last time around is on the higher end of the times he's been setting. That is monotonous pace, the like of which we've often seen from Jonathan Rea, maybe, in the past.
from Jonathan Rea. We do tend to see that consistency from other riders. We tend to see them get stronger as the race goes on. Scott Redding, surprisingly, on that X tyre, just set his fastest lap of the race with only 3 laps to go. So for Redding, he's closing in on Sykes. He's got that gap down to a second.
As we watch the riders making their way through the Fogarty S's in super slow motion.
Yeah, and you can see for Garrett Gerloff coming through here in second position right now. Gerloff, he's got 3 seconds in front of him to Toprak, 3 seconds behind him, so a bit of an isolated race for him as well, but he won't be too annoyed if he's able to come away with his first podium in a feature race this season and 20 points.
Yes, 3rd position in the Superpole race in Aragon, of course, his only top 3 finish of this 2021 campaign so far. So Garrett Gerloff looking for not only his best result of this 2021 campaign, but also a first top 3 finish in a full-length race, as you've said. Still a way to go just yet, but it's just about keeping it on the island from here on in for the 2 Yamahas out in front. How often have we been able to say that in recent years? Razgatlioglu and Gerloff leading the way. It's Sykes in 3rd position, and the gap really coming down now to Scott Redding. He's made up another few tenths in the final sector of that last lap around. So Redding is the man on the move. 6 tenths of a second now the gap for Tom Sykes to try and defend.
And for Redding, he needs to make sure he can pick up these points. He's currently 66 points behind the championship leader as it stands right now on the racetrack. If he's able to pick up this, gives him an extra 3 points, but more importantly, puts him on the podium, gives him a bit of momentum going into the next round in Aston.
Credit to Tom Sykes, there's not been much to choose between himself and his teammate in this 2021 campaign. We know he goes well here in Donington Park, and it always seems to spur him on to something extra, actually much in the same way Michael van der Mark will be looking forward to the visit to Assen next time out, where he's had more podiums for himself than at any other circuit. But the balance of power at Sykes' home round, as far as the BMW camp is concerned, very much in favour of the number 66 machine. He's 7 seconds clear of van der Mark at the moment, only 2 places ahead of him, but that might only be 1 very soon, because Scott Redding, through this second half of the lap in particular, looks to be closing down Tom Sykes.
Yeah, Redding's been able to pull back a couple of tenths of a second on this lap, and you can see there it just runs in too deep down into the Melbourne loop. But for Redding, he's pushing hard to try and give himself that opportunity. He knows there's only going to be 2 laps to go when we come around next time around. And for Tom Sykes, he hasn't really put a foot wrong. He's been able to hit all of his markers. He's putting the pressure on Scott Redding to make that move. It's a short lap here at Donington Park. It's only 1 minute 28 seconds. So if you're able to pick up a few tenths of a second, you're doing a really good job. Scott Redding needs to do a really good job over the last couple of laps to try and make a move.
So Scott Redding had got the gap down to 6 tenths of a second with 3 to go. He had closed in further, but going in back wheel first effectively in towards the penultimate turn of lap number 21 means he's still got 6 tenths to find over just 2 laps now. He's made a bit of progress in the first sector of this penultimate lap. Half a second currently the gap then between Tom Sykes and Scott Redding for 3rd.
And for Redding, it's now a case of hooking up all of his sectors to be able to try and put some pressure onto the BMW, but we've seen Sykes actually quite strong into the Melbourne loop over the course this weekend. We know it's difficult to make a move into Goddard as well, so it is going to come down to the foggy S's and then into the Melbourne loop for Scott Redding. He's going to need to have a really good run through the S's to try and set something up.
Yeah, should be a classic last lap finale between those two, you would fancy, and there's been a fair few of those down the years into those final 2 hairpins.
Further down the field as well, Chaz Davis is taking a second a lap out of Alex Lowe's as well. That gap down to 1.5 seconds with 1.5 laps to go. So for Chaz Davis on the Ducati, trying to just make sure he's in a position to attack Alex Lowe's.
Yes, and for Chaz Davis, who's had a miserable weekend so far with an 11th and an 8th, that would be a best result if he can take 6th position since that podium finish for him in Estoril Race 2. In now to the final lap. Razgatlioglu's got this job done, barring any mistakes in the closing stages, but it's a new personal best lap from Scott Redding, a 1:28.423. We switch back to them now. Nothing to choose between them, just 3 tenths, and we've seen Redding has been 3 tenths a lap faster than Tom Sykes. This is going to get close at the finish, much as you suggested, Steve, the battle further back down the order could close as well, although Chaz Davies looks to have lost ground there on the penultimate lap. So Davies perhaps his fight extinguished with Alex Lowe's, who should be able to settle it down for 6th. It's a whole lot closer than that, though, when we look for the final step of the podium.
Yeah, you can see the potential between the 2 bikes very similar, but Scott Redding setting his time right at the end when the tyre is pretty much used up, so it shows how strong that Ducati's been as the race progresses, but he's had too much ground to make up on Tom Sykes. But he is in a position now, if he can be really strong through Coppice, down to Dunlop straight, and then have a good run through the S's, he might be close enough to try and set something up into the loop, but it's a big ask from where he is right now.
Scott Redding doesn't look to me to be close enough to the tail of Tom Sykes to make it through. They come through the Fogarty S's for the final time. It's going to have to be a big, bold move down the hill in towards the Melbourne hairpin. Sykes defends the inside line. Redding once again sliding it in wide into the penultimate turn, and I think that settles it for third. Meanwhile, with one turn to go, making his way through Goddard's, he's soaked up all of the pressure this weekend exerted by Jonathan Rea. Rea's gone down in the gravel trap, and you have a new championship leader leaving round 4 of the 2021 campaign. Toprak Razgatlioglu makes it 2 victories from the UK round and takes a 2-point series advantage over the reigning world champion. Second over the line is Garrett Gerloff, his best result of this 2021 campaign. And finally, a podium from a feature-length race. Tom Sykes over the line for back-to-back podiums, and his first in a feature-length race for quite some time as well. Scott Redding can only manage 4th position. He was trying oh so hard in those final few laps, just couldn't get it stopped into the Melbourne hairpin, wasn't quite close enough to get the job done. Michael van der Mark it is who takes 5th position, some way adrift of his teammate, but a solid weekend throughout for BMW. Alex Lowe's does hold on for 6th position, Chaz Davies fading on the final 2 laps, Michael Ruben Rinaldi, Leon Haslam and Alvaro Bautista rounding out your top 10. Bautista didn't quite get to Haslam in the end.
Yeah, Bautista just sitting that 1 place back, but I tell you what, at the front of the field, the guy sitting on top, Toprak Razgatlioglu, doing a really good job all the way through that race. You can't fault the job Toprak's done all the way through this weekend, last time out in Misano and also at the previous race in Estoril. He's been pretty much flawless all the way through. You can see JR there getting the thumbs up from his Kawasaki team despite that crash. And for Jonathan Rea, at the end of the day, he's made a mistake now. He's got one of those non-scores. He's still only 2 points behind Toprak, but it is going to be strange for Jonathan Rea to be looking up in the championship table rather than trying to manage that gap.
Well, in fairness, he's had to do it with Alvaro Bautista. He's had to do it at times with Scott Redding. Now he's got to do it again with Toprak Razgatlioglu. Jonathan Rea doesn't seem to be fazed by what everyone else is doing normally. But today you wonder whether the pressure might just be starting to play a part.
Toprak's more of a complete package, and the Yamaha's more of a complete package. This is one of those situations where for the first time in a long time, Jonathan Rea is going to be under that real pressure to be able to perform week in, week out. You can see that basically the only thing that's really gone wrong for Toprak there is that the Turkish flag's fallen off his flagpole, but I'm sure he'll be able to find one close enough to the podium.
Perhaps there just wasn't enough wind, Steve, here in Donington Park. Not so sure about that. Anyway, a 9th podium of the season for Toprak Razgatlioglu. That's the thing that the other riders have been missing when you talk about complete package, the consistency on their off days as well. 9 podiums for Razgatlioglu. Yes, we know that Rea has managed more, but Toprak, crucially, as we said at the top of the programme, has not been out of the top 6 yet, and Jonathan Rea now has, with an on-scoring ride here today, as Tom Sykes leaves what is left of his Pirelli rubber on the circuit as a memento here in Donington Park.
Yeah, there's not usually much rubber left on the X at the end of the race, and there'll be none left there for Tom Sykes. There'll be a bit of a clean-up there for the team to do, but after he finishes on the podium for 2 races today, I doubt they're going to mind too much.
No, I think they might pardon him that. And now Michael van der Mark will really be looking forward to Assen, his home round next time out, having just seen Tom Sykes get 2 podiums at his home round.
Yeah, and for BMW, this was a really good weekend. Top 5s again, and they've been strong and consistent all the way through. Sykes doing his best to really use up all that Pirelli rubber. But BMW's made a step forward. The bike works well at this track, and this is what's quite interesting with it, because we know that the Kawasaki and the Yamaha are working well everywhere. We know the Ducati's got good potential. The BMW and the Honda right now, they're working in specific racetracks. Now for BMW, the challenge is going to be to see whether they can carry that forward to Aston.
The well-known expression in motorsport in general is you're only as good as your last race, and when you've been 2 years more or less without a podium finish, must be quite a relief for Tom Sykes. I know there's a feature interview with Sykes on WorldSBK.com, and he was saying that the fire still effectively burns as strong as ever. He's certainly proven that this weekend.
Yeah, and certainly Sykes came back on form all the way through this weekend. He's looked good at times through the course of this season as well. Hasn't seen that drop off during the races we saw in the past. He's been much more consistent, and at the end of the day, it's easy to forget Tom Sykes a world champion. He's won a lot of races. He's clearly got that potential. And whenever he's got that BMW doing what he wants it to do, he can still get those good results.
His last race victory, Assen, where we head next in the 2021 World Championship. So who knows what might be possible for BMW. They're certainly closing the gap. 4.5 seconds to Toprak Razgatlioglu at the checkered flag here today. And as you say, this isn't the Tom Sykes that was qualifying so well over the last couple of seasons and then dropping like a stone through the field. He's able to maintain some pace as races are going on. He finishes third here today. Razgatlioglu, your winner, ahead of Garrett Gerloff in second. Sykes completes the podium. Redding is best of the rest, makes up points on Jonathan Rea, but loses more to Razgatlioglu. 66 points is now the gap at the top of the championship. Michael van der Mark in 5th position. Another solid effort from the Dutchman. 3 5th places in a row now on board the BMW. The first time he's managed that on new machinery for him in 2021. Alex Lowe's in 6th position, at least some points on the board after his fall earlier on today. Razgatlioglu then leads your championship, leaving round 4 of this 2021 campaign. Not many were expecting that. They were saying that this was going to be Jonathan Rea's opportunity to stamp his authority on the championship in likely mixed conditions. Well, Toprak leaves as a 2-point series leader. Redding 66 points back, moves back in front of Lowe's, who drops 3 points down, 69 away from the series leader. Rinaldi is best of the rest in 5th, with Garrett Gerloff gaining 20 points and closing down the Italian. Plenty still to come in 2021. But 2 riders separated by 2 points. We couldn't have asked for a better setup for the 5th round of this season.
No, it's fantastic. It's exactly what you want. And how many times in the past have we said about the fact that Jonathan Rea, over the course of the 3 races for a weekend, that's what he focuses on, being able to extend his championship leads. This is a case of, again, Toprak over the course of the full weekend has been able to take those points away from Jonathan Rea. It was 15 points he took away from him last time out in Misano. It's 18 points this weekend, and 22 points this weekend, and he's been able to extend that championship advantage now in this race. So Toprak doing a really good job.
Make no mistake, Jonathan Rea is going to be back. The reality of this is that Rea was leading at the time of that fall, so he's certainly going to be there challenging Toprak every step of the way.
Yeah, that is a reality, but the other factor you could think of as well is the 3 races Toprak hasn't been on the podium have been in the wet. He's come away with top 6 finishes in them, and that's his biggest weakness. So for Toprak right now, he's shown himself that he's really rounding out all those edges, and he's given himself a chance to be competitive everywhere.
Yep, I'll take that argument. Razgatlioglu, impressive here today. He is your race winner ahead of Garrett Gerloff and Tom Sykes. Fantastic back-to-back podiums from him.
Tom, it's the first back-to-back podiums you've had in WorldSBK since 2018, and the whole weekend has been absolutely fantastic.
Well, thank you very much. I'll take that as a compliment. Cheers. It's been a long time coming, and that was a... Go on, Abby! Yeah, it was supposed to. That was a long time coming, and it was a difficult race. We tried a different tyre, just copied suit with what Toprak danced around us all yesterday was, and yeah, kind of got 4 laps in and wish I hadn't done that. We used the X tyre, and that was a difficult race physically. Probably one of the most demanding of my career. I had no rear grip, but I just sat back on the old girl, hoping the berries, and we found it. You know, that's the extra Yorkshire pudding came in for that, and really enjoyed the race. Guys give me a good pit board. Really, not just for myself, but the whole of the BMW Motorrad Superbike team. To yeah, the M1000RR has had a great weekend. I tested their skills at the beginning of the week by chucking it down the road, but I did warn them I'd be dragging the thing around this weekend, so we had to go. Came away with what the team deserved, and I'm happy for that. Hopefully we can build on it. Cheers.
Congratulations, Tom.
Have you ever heard a more Yorkshire interview given? Tom Sykes gets 3rd position here today, and fantastic performance, as we heard there down from Tom Sykes, his 17th podium around this circuit, and his 2nd podium of this 2021 campaign.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, Tom's got a future as a road racer as well, if he's just looking to put the traction on with those extra Yorkshire puddings. But this was a really impressive ride from Tom, and he was talking there about the fact that with that X tyre, softer compound, lost grip all the way through that race. It is a challenge. That's why the Yamaha has been so competitive. It can make that tyre last all the way through races. Other bikes struggle with that, and Tom was able to compensate for that, work around it, and find the solution, and that's why he's been able to come away with a podium. Nice to see his teammate Michael van der Mark down there in Park Ferme as well, just offer his congratulations.
When we think about Tom Sykes, and you touched on it earlier, Steve, it's easy to forget, given the wait since his last podium, just how how dominant he was at one stage of his career, how many victories he's taken. In total, Tom Sykes with 34 wins, 114 podiums now, so he is very much a storied legend in the World SBK paddock and among the top 3 for all-time appearances as well. Great to see the congratulations from Michael van der Mark given to Tom Sykes for an excellent performance here today. I'm sure that van der Mark will be hoping to turn the tables next time out at his home round in the Netherlands. It's Sykes then that takes 3rd position in race number 2. 2nd place going the way of Garrett Gerloff, and your race winner is Toprak Razgatlioglu. In the end, another race without a Ducati on the podium. Michael Ruben Rinaldi in 8th and Scott Redding in 4th.
Yeah, tough weekend for Ducati all in, and for Scott Redding to be able to come away with a top 5 finish, it's actually not a bad result considering where they've been over the course of this weekend. And for Scott, with those 2 non-scores, it really was important to be able to come back with something during the course of this race.
That's often been the case for Scott Redding, hasn't it? We said it at the top of the programme that if there's any race in which he's going to be able to show his true potential, it'll be the race 2, which has been the case in the past.
Yeah, we talked so much about the consistency of Jonathan Rea and now Toprak as well. It's been the inconsistencies of Ducatis that's really been their Achilles heel. That bike has all the potential, all the performance that's needed, but it just doesn't have that week in, week out performance from round to round, and that's why Ducati's tended to struggle over the course of the last few years to maintain that championship challenge, as it is in the Manufacturers' Championship. That's why Kawasaki lead the way from Yamaha, and then Ducati are coming up in 3rd spot.
2nd position then here today for the 5th podium of his career, and his 2nd of this 2021 campaign is Garrett Gerloff.
Garrett, you've had fantastic pace in the long races all season long. How good does it feel to put it together here in Donington Park?
It feels better than you can imagine. Like, trust me, it's been not exactly the start to the year that I would have hoped for, and it's been tough for a lot of different reasons, but I just got to thank my GRT team the most for all their support and all their cheering me on and positivity and everything. And it's without a great team working with you, it's really hard to get anything done. So big thanks to them, big thanks to my girlfriend, big thanks to all my friends and family back home for all their support and love. And it just does feel really nice to be up on the box finally. Again, it's been feels like it's been a long time. So thanks to HAC, Alpine Stars, and I just got to give all the glory to my Lord and Savior Jesus Christ.
Congratulations, Garrett.
Appreciate it.
2nd position then here in race 2 from Garrett Gerloff. Didn't have the pace to run with Toprak Razgatlioglu, but to be perfectly honest, Steve English alongside me, Toprak was running a similar pace to Garrett for much of that race, so the Texan doing a very strong job.
Yeah, really impressive ride there from Gerloff, and certainly the kind of ride that you would expect from Gerloff now at this stage in terms of his pace and his potential, but definitely for him the important thing is to be able to be mistake-free and avoid any of the issues we've seen at different times in the past for Gerloff, but the potential certainly there, and now it's about going to Assen next time out and then being able to see exactly what he can do, a track that he knows now, having raced there in MotoGP as well. It's all about maintaining that momentum for Gerloff.
Garrett Gerloff then with points on the board, which hasn't often been the case in 2021. He hasn't tended to have the results that have matched his pace, but this man certainly has, and he is your new championship leader.
Toprak, that's 3 wins now in the last 4 races, and you go to Assen now as the championship leader. How does it feel?
Today also sprint race, and for me not a good position, but I am focused to just 2nd race because the weather condition much better, and in the race I fighting for win, but and after I follow Johnny is a big mistake, and after I fighting for win again, but I'm really happy because this weekend 2 win. And also very good take points, and I'm now championship leader, and I'm really happy thanks to my team and the great job this weekend, and see you in Assen.
Congratulations,
Thank
Toprak.
you very much. See you.
We certainly will. Toprak Razgatlioglu, maybe a little bit of a celebration between now and then.
Yeah, there's a good chance for that. Let's have a look at Toprak's highlights from this race from the 2nd row of the grid. He was able to make a good start. He was up into 2nd in those early laps, and then just applying the pressure on Jonathan Rea.
What a rocket ship getaway. That's another astonishing start.
Yeah, for Toprak, we saw in yesterday's race as well. He was able to make a great start. He's just got a lot of confidence right now in every area. He knows he's going to make good starts. He knows he's going to give himself a good opportunity to put his bike where it has to be. But it's how he reacts to things around him. If you watch a replay from yesterday's race, came very close to contact with Michael Ruben Rinaldi in race 1, but he just reacted to it. He was able to adapt and get his way around. And when you've got that confidence, when you're on that crest of a wave, how often in the past have we seen Jonathan Rea just get away with something? It's because you've got that confidence to think, I'm going to make this work.
Rare mistake, of course, for Jonathan Rea today. We've seen a few cracks appearing, I would suggest, admittedly in mixed conditions for Rea, but here's the incident.
I wouldn't say too many cracks, really. Jonathan was pushing hard in yesterday's race. He had a few moments, he was able to react to it, and I think at the end of the day for Jonathan Rea, we've seen him all the way over the last few years, that he does make one mistake a year, maybe 2 mistakes a year. They do tend to catch him out. In Phillip Island last year, he made one of those, and he's made one today, but he's only 2 points behind Toprak. He's been strong all the way through the season. This is the first race he hasn't finished on the podium, so you'd certainly expect to see when we get to Assen, which has traditionally been Jonathan Rea's favourite track, and where he's had so much success in the past, that he's going to feel really confident going there as well.
Yamaha Duo 1-2, Garrett Gerloff and Razgatlioglu in the same order in Estoril. They're turning into the de facto top pairing for Yamaha.
Yeah, well, they are the 2 top Yamaha riders. They're the factory riders in a lot of ways. Obviously, we've got Andrea Locatelli in the Paddy Yamaha squad, but Garrett Gerloff, he's got the exact same bike underneath him as Toprak. He's got good support, and he's very happy where he is as well. And that's where it gets interesting now that we're into the rider market stage of the season. Would Garrett Gerloff like to change teams, or would he want to stay where he is at GRT? He can get good results at GRT. He's got a good team around him, and he's got that team focused on him as well. So it's going to be interesting to see what Yamaha end up doing with their riders for next season.
Fastest lap of the race set by Jonathan Rea, so he pulls back in front of Toprak Razgatlioglu in that metric, but I suspect that will be of very little consolation indeed for Rea, losing a massive swing of points there. Was at one stage set to gain 5, instead loses 25, and it is Toprak Razgatlioglu who walks away from the UK round. As you said, Steve, if it wasn't his favourite circuit before, it certainly is now.
Yeah, almost certainly, and rightly so for Toprak, and good opportunity for the team as well. A home race, of course, for Crescent Racing, and they've had some success here at Donington in the past. Double race victory for Michael van der Mark in 2018, but this one's going to mean an awful lot for them as well. 2 race victories for Toprak this weekend, and all importantly, taking back that championship lead for Yamaha.
Well, I suggested earlier on that maybe the wind wasn't blowing hard enough, but you can certainly see on the podium that it is. The 3 flags flying high for Tom Sykes in 3rd position, Garrett Gerloff in 2nd, and Toprak Razgatlioglu your race winner. Podium number 114 for Tom Sykes, and his 17th here in Donington Park, his 2nd of this 2021 campaign. For Garrett Gerloff, it's podium number 5, the 2nd of this season. Of course, he finished so strongly at the end of 2020, but hasn't necessarily had the results that he might have hoped for at the start of this season. 20 valuable points put on the board for him, also important in the battle for top independents. But as far as the championship is concerned, the most crucial result of the season so far, Razgatlioglu gains 25 points on Jonathan Rea in one hit, with a race win in race 2 here today. Razgatlioglu then back to the top step of the podium, the 7th victory of his career, and his 2nd race victory here in Donington Park, of course adding to race 1, and great to see him able to share that moment with Phil Marin as well.
Yeah, Phil, of course, crew chief for Toprak. A lot of success between them over the last few years, whether it was with Pichetti Kawasaki or now with Paddy Yamaha, and they very much deserve the spoils that are coming their way.
And fine performance from Toprak Razgatlioglu this weekend. Let's hear the Turkish national anthem. Here we go then, it's the national anthem for your winning manufacturer. A neat little observation from you as well, Steve, about Garrett Gerloff.
Yeah, 4th of July, so not a bad way to celebrate for Garrett Gerloff with his second podium of the season, and all important for him to be able to get that 20 points as well after the disappointment of yesterday's mistake.
So, as for the championship, it's Toprak Razgatlioglu who walks away as your series leader. But here today, it is about Yamaha and their 1-2. Happy 4th of July, says Garrett Gerloff. You got in there before him, Steve. Well done.
That's good enough for me.
Your podium trio, Tom Sykes, Garrett Gerloff and Toprak Razgatlioglu. And now we look ahead to the 5th round of the 2021 campaign. Another 2-week break leaving Donington Park before we head back to mainland Europe and the Cathedral of Speed, the TT Assen circuit. Round 5 of the 2021 campaign comes from the Netherlands, the Prosecco DOC Dutch round. Podium wrapping up here in Donington Park that brings our programme to a conclusion. WorldSBK only as far as the World Superbike paddock is concerned this weekend. Look then at the confirmed results. Toprak takes maximum points, 25 for him, and a big scoring weekend for Yamaha all round, with Garrett Gerloff on the podium scoring 20 in race 2. Tom Sykes with back-to-back podiums. Scott Redding saves his best till last, but it is another weekend without a podium finish for the Ducati man. Michael van der Mark takes 5th position to complete 3 races in a row inside the top 5. Alvaro Bautista recovers to 10th position, struggling for his grid position throughout the weekend, but makes a decent recovery. Leon Haslam goes in the other direction from 4th to 9th, and they finish 2 seconds apart at the flag. Rare that you see Jonathan Rea at the very back of the field. Of course, a big crash for him is the main talking point of the story of this weekend. We certainly have a championship now. After round 4, just 2 points separate Razgatlioglu and Rea, and they swap positions. Toprak is your new series leader from Rea in 2nd. Redding at 66 points back from the series leader in 3rd. Then it's Alex Lowe's, Michael Ruben Rinaldi. Garrett Gerloff leapfrogs Tom Sykes by virtue of taking 2nd over 3rd for Sykes here today. Tito Rabat picks up something further down the order on a generally difficult weekend for Ducatis all told. Independent Riders Championship then, and Garrett Gerloff picking up 20 handy points to pull clear of Chaz Davies and Axel Bassani, with Luca Mayas really having a starring weekend, doing a great job at the UK rounds. Teams Championship, and it's Kawasaki Racing Team, KRT, who lead the way. Alex Lowe's and Jonathan Rea, despite the fact that Rea obviously made a misstep in race 2 this afternoon. They're still comfortably clear of Pata Yamaha, for whom scoring for their second rider has been severely restricted, and Aruba IT Racing Ducati, who've struggled for consistency. Independent teams, GRT out in front, courtesy of their points from Garrett Gerloff. Also a contribution from Kota Nazane, of course, who hasn't been able to participate this weekend, but has stayed on to watch his teammate, the Texan Gerloff, come up with a 2nd place finish this afternoon. Team Go 11 and Moto Corsa, courtesy of Axel Bassani, are behind. Manufacturers Championship, Kawasaki lead Yamaha by 4 points. Ducati in 3rd and 17 points back. This is still pretty close. Balance mostly settled by race wins and podiums, and there's not been too much to choose between the 3 manufacturers in those terms. Hyundai-inspired rider Alvaro Bautista, again with a disappointing Super Pole race, starting pretty well back down the order, makes good progress to lead the series and pull further clear of Axel Bassani as well. That's all then from Donington Park. 19 days until bikes are back on track. Yes, we're counting. See you in Assen.